Hello viewers and welcome to my new video. Have you ever wondered why certain bands are missed off when it comes to certain lists, publications, films, documentaries, books, you name it? It's something that's kind of recently crossed my mind. There was a time when I still lived in Poland, and my sort of first ever band, which is called Dzieci Stanu Wojennego, we were kind of a small band, but we were probably known in our hometown of Kraków, and there was a little bit of recognition on the scene that that we were part of at the time, for sure. And there was this time when this guy was writing like a music encyclopedia of Kraków, I think, of the city itself. And he was basically, there was like an encyclopedia basically from A to Z, a list of all bands, and there was like a little bit of a mention against each band, and then with some photos, I think, as well, on each page. And at the time, he somehow found me, and remember, that was pre-internet era as well. So he found me and he asked me if I wanted to do an interview for him, and then if I wanted to provide him with some photos and actually like a story, like a background for the band, which I gladly did. And that entry is still there. It actually can be found online. I'm going to leave a link in the description as well, so you can find it and actually read it. But then there were some other occasions where, for example, I've been in bands in the UK, and for example, there would be a list of some sort or a book, and this doesn't just go for the bands that I was in, but even though there was this scene that we were part of, and we were playing quite a lot of gigs, and quite a lot of people liked us and recognized us and that kind of thing. Sometimes in some of those entries, for example, we were missed off. And I'm not just saying that this from kind of like a bitter standpoint, by the way. Please don't take it that way, because this is not what this video is about. But it actually made me think, because I watch quite a lot of music documentaries, for example, and I'm sort of curious to find out about things, how things kind of happened, what was the inception of certain music movements, things like that, particular music scenes and genres and so on and so forth. And sometimes, I wonder, when you watch stuff like that actually, are you being presented with the full information and the full knowledge of actually what was in existence in those scenes, for example, because I have a feeling that it must not just be my own experience, and I also know about bands that have existed, but for example haven't been included. So I'll just give you like a classic example, like about the punk scene, for instance, where someone might be doing a like a list of all bands from a certain area, or I don't know, that existed between this year and that year, for example. Or someone might be writing a book about a scene, and then might be writing, like there was this UK punk scene, or this scene in this city, or the entire country, or whatever, I don't know. And there will be bands that are missed off from those types of things, and that's what I mean. And I through that, I know that it must be very difficult for the researcher, by the way, and I'm not a sort of criticizing authors of these publications, because I'm sure that it must be really difficult, and you can only probably go so deep with it, and you can sort of find the bands that somehow have made it into your consciousness, so you're aware of them. But at the same time, I also think that this can be harmful, and not only harmful, I think that the knowledge is incomplete, basically, that information is incomplete, because there often are other bands who have also been on those scenes. So imagine, say you watch a documentary about, say, early punk scene in the UK, for instance, right? And you will hear about these bands, you know, the Sex Pistols, the Clash, the Damned, the Jam, you know, Stiff Little Fingers, and Chelsea 999. I'm just trying to think about all these bands that existed, maybe Sham 69 or whatever, you know, that might be, the Buzzcocks. And you hear about those bands, but those are the bands that kind of like, yeah, they made it quite big actually on that scene, and they were like those at the forefront of the scene. But I am convinced almost that there must have been other bands that were also playing gigs, they were also kind of releasing some records at the time, or doing things that do not even get a single mention in some of these documentaries, for example. And it's really interesting to recognize that, and then to kind of almost think that there must be something else out there, that these things must go deeper. But it's like, how do you find this out? You know, how can you find out more about these other bands and these other artists that actually existed in those times and within those scenes? I actually don't know the answer to that, and I suppose those who have managed to get in, obviously I recognize it's like a part of history, but you know, I would like to see more of that sort of very kind of in-depth analysis in that sense, and actually recognizing that actually, you know what, there were other bands that should be mentioned because they were actually active, and that would be actually a complete representation, and you'd kind of know what sort of every single thing about every single band. That would be really cool. But yeah, please let me know in the comments what you think about that, and you know, have you got your own observations, or maybe you have been in a band that have been sort of missed off from some of these publications or lists or documentaries, and maybe you could actually sort of bring your story to life. So thanks very much for watching the video, and I will see you in my next video.